Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right. And good evening for those of you who are joining us from TV land. We had started our meeting at 6 o'clock, or 6:15, I should say, but the cable people just arrived, so we're sort of in the middle of it. Okay, getting back to status and update. Any more questions about the? Did we go through all the things for the town? We covered everything, right?
Finished up the town.
Okay. Any questions from anybody? Okay. All right. Well, we'll move on to the schools, and we have. And I'm sorry, if I mispronounced your name, I apologize. Is Izabiki? Is that
Izbiki?
Izabiki. Good evening. Welcome. Why don't you provide us with an update, I guess, on the.
Right. So our two major initiatives are the planning and design, and hopefully building at some point a new elementary school, and the energy efficiency project at LMS. Those things have kicked off. We are in the design pre-bond phase of the new school. We originally were thinking K-5. It's looking like it's going to be a K-4 building, and it's just determining the correct site on which to put it at this point. Mostly because both properties have water table issues. So we just need to determine what's the best place to build for longevity of a building and what best suits the community. So we are working with a lot of consultants and an architect who's been hired. Barker and Associates out of Concord has been hired as our architect. And they are working with a subcontract, Ashley McGraw Studios, who's out of Syracuse, New York, and has a lot of extensive experience with energy efficient and high performance buildings. So that work is going on. The two things listed as energy efficiency project, what we came to find as we were working our way through this project is that a majority of this work is going to be on LMS. LMS was way behind in terms of energy efficiency, control systems, just a lot of things, a lot of deferred maintenance that a lot of things need to be corrected. So as we go through with the energy efficiency work, we're finding areas of the building that need some renovation, some work to them. So phase one this past summer included a renovation of the administration area, developing a new conference room and a new teacher's workspace, along with replacement of HVAC 1, which services the administrative area, and the roof. And the roof, because of materials with everything, that's going to start within the next couple weeks. They'll get the roof on. It takes 6 to 8 weeks once they get going. And then that'll end phase one. Phase two next year is a full overhaul of the HVAC system and 500 kilowatts of solar array on the roof. So in order to put that array up, we had to do the roof. And a lot of these things for LMS, this first phase, it's a combination of ESSER grant funding, impact fees that the town has approved, and some capital reserve monies that'll be used towards that. Second phase, we'll be bringing a municipal lease purchase agreement forward for the warrant in order to get that work done next summer. So we should have a pricing set for design probably mid-October, I think they said this morning, Brian, and then full construction documents by December. So we'll be able to move forward with a lot of this work. So that'll be good. That being said, actually, I'll mention too that phase two, since we have a construction manager on site, North Branch Construction, where we mentioned doing renovation of the LMS kitchen, we're going to roll that into the project because the construction manager is already on site. If we bid that out and bring them back in, it just increases your general conditions in your contract. So they're going to work on that. We're going to work with a kitchen designer to get that done over next summer as well. Everything else listed at this point, what I would say is kind of deferred. Those are two really big ticket things that we're working on right now. I don't see the CHS parking lot being paved in, we have it 22. Gym bleachers, we're working on looking at getting those repaired rather than having to replace them. Hopefully at a lower cost than what's here. And then we will continue to put on the warrant funds into that capital reserve. And it'll just aid us on all these projects. We're really getting a lot done. Brian's been in a lot of the meetings too, so there's a lot going on.
So just one thing to expound on as far as GMS, there's several different viewpoints we're looking at right now, from building new on the GMS site itself, building new on the LMS site that's up top, or even rebuilding the building, refurbing it to bring it up to 2021, 2022 needs of education. It all depends on what it would cost to do the renovation, because the state, anything over 60% of cost for renovating a building, they don't allow you to do, then you'd have to build new. So that's also being looked at, that there's a possibility that, you could save millions of dollars by just utilizing parts of that building and then just rebuilding it. But I mean, there's a lot that has to go into, and I don't remember who the person was on the first charrette, but he said, he goes, I haven't seen the building yet, but just from what everyone's talking about, it doesn't sound feasible. But at the same time, the architect looking at it thinks, it's got some good bones to it, as far as, you get concrete walls all over the place, just whether or not you can utilize it. And then when we found out, like up top, there's only so much property up there, and because leach field, you have to put another leach field in, and it may be too close to the other leach field. And there's
Wetlands.
There's wetlands.
It's steep out in the woods
And
sand.
the land is mostly sand. So the option of, if it has to be new, it might be just right behind the existing building now, and then just demolish the building that's there.
I will mention here too that we've had conversations with Amy Clark from the NHDOE. She's the head of the building aid program. We are going to put a letter of intent in January and an application in July of next year, but our chances in terms of ranking high for building aid, because it's a selective process now. They had 32 on the list. I think 2.5 got funded last time, and everybody just goes up. And unless you have like serious life safety issues, they're not. Our architect doesn't feel, he's been working in this for 30 years. He doesn't feel that we're going to rank high enough
Anywhere close
to get in this, because there's a couple other schools in the state that are going to be hitting a ballot within the next year or two. So
that's trying to get grant funding.
what's that?
That's trying to get the grant funding.
That's for state building aid.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you get reimbursed if you go off because you don't get to the top of the list, and you go off, build your building 8 years down the road? Can you get reimbursed through the building aid program?
I don't think so.
No. Okay. I just know the state,
They
they used to have bridge aid, and there were so many towns and cities that were, had bridges that needed to be addressed. And what they would tell you is they would authorize you to go ahead, do whatever work, with the promise one day, when your project would rise to the top, and
Someday
you
we'll
would
get
get
this built.
reimbursed. And in fact, it did work that way, but I just didn't know if school
In
building.
this case, I don't believe so, and it depends on if they decide to really fully fund the building aid program, so more projects can get in there. There's also the possibility of federal infrastructure aid through some of the legislation that's coming down, but we don't know what that would look like at this point. And all the energy efficiency work that we're doing, we should be entitled to some grants and such related to that, and rebates. So we're looking at every available option. We have a energy efficiency consultant that is on top of all the grant type work. I think all the guy does is read. That's all I really have in terms of the school project going on right now.
So there's no plan to try to seek bonding or whatever to build a new school in 2022. That's,
It would go
that's-
to, no, and at one point we thought maybe since there wouldn't really be building aid available, that we would push to get it on the 22 ballot. But at this point, it's just too short a time
Okay.
to get it on there. So it would be on the ballot for 23.
you're thinking 23.
We're thinking 23, and then the first bond payment probably wouldn't be until after
24.
completion.
All right. Because back when we started the CIP process, you were thinking 2022 for the bond question, or was that never?
It looks like that's on
I think it was always
first bond
23.
payments on 24. So
Yeah.
we were
So
looking at the ballot on 23. That
Okay.
was originally the.
Then the fire department, police department was after.
And yeah, because I just remember the police.
And we also, in terms of, when you're building a warrant and you have a municipal lease purchase, 2 collective bargaining agreements, an operating budget, it's like,
Yeah.
sometimes it gets to be too many things.
Yeah, it's there. 2024 was your first bond payment, 1.6 million. All right. Yeah. So
And hopefully, with the way that, the bond rates are really
Really
low
low.
right now. If it stays consistent with that, we could be in pretty good shape in terms of the rate we can get.
The other thing is that number most likely will go up once we have a cost affixed to
Yeah.
as far as building or fixing what's there now. Because if we're not getting state aid,
Mhm.
then it's all levied on this.
Yeah, because this was based on the assumption of 30% state
Right.
aid.
So the 70,000, that was for basically
That was the
Into the-
initial.
like the initial process of the engineering and all that.
That was our initial transfer into the capital reserve fund
Okay.
to start the design work and such. That's been spent.
Probably just in the first week of that team working on it. It's like they're all over the place.
But the thing is, like, I know it's like we probably have 4 or 5 different consultants that we're working with, but they all specialize. And
Yeah.
me and Mike aren't architects. We're not mechanical engineers. We need these people to keep us on track.
Anybody else have any questions? Brian, anything you want to add or?
No, that was it.
Okay.
I'm going just for school, just a heads up and everything. Probably tomorrow's Tuesday. Yeah, tomorrow or Wednesday. I'm going to. There was some questions and some discussions that came up during the budget committee meeting about long-term planning and scheduling for. It was more vehicle discussion,
Mhm.
but I'm going to share this spreadsheet with the budget committee again. So just so you know, it'll go out there, and I don't know what
I went
if it'll
to
generate any school questions or whatever, but I think we're all comfortable with what's on the spreadsheet and no disagreements with it.
I went to the budget committee a couple weeks ago. I think it was. I just went to check in and gave them kind of an update as well as in terms of what the school's doing. So we're keeping them in the loop.
It's good to let them know that we do have a plan.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's
They like plans. They may not like the dollars attached to the plans, but they like
There's a
the
plan.
plans.
well, there's there's some members that have been around for a few years, been part of this CIP planning process. Then you have some new members that have just kind of
Yep.
joined, and so I just want to send it out there, and then I just don't want the school to start getting all these questions saying the CIP plan. So I just want to give you a heads up. I'm going to share it with them.
Appreciate that.
I noticed, if you look at the totals for this, of what we did last year, that the estimated tax impact rate it went up a little bit, but not exponentially. Last year, I think it was like $2.61, and this year it's like $2.81 for 2021. So, minute changes, but that's it.
That's if everything was brought forward.
Right.
Jay, I just noticed that because I think this is the spreadsheet that we have probably on our website and everything. We don't have the adopted date. So I'll research, go back in the Board of Selectmen's meeting minutes and find the actual date that the Board of Selectmen adopted this.
That's a good point.
And, yeah, before I share it out there with the budget committee.
And I could add that, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much
You're welcome.
for your input. Next on the agenda is the ARPA funds. Troy, did you?
Yeah. So everyone refers to them as Arpa Funds. I don't know what you've heard so far, and I'm not sure really what on the school side of things, if you're receiving any additional funds
We have,
through the American Rescue Act.
yeah, we have the CARES ESSER 1 and 2.
Okay.
1, 2, and 3 that we're working with right now.
So the town has been, based on, the initial calculation, we're scheduled to receive about $904,000 through the ARPA funds. We've received, I believe, one check already, somewhere right around $480,000. So that's actually we're in receipt of those funds, and they're been placed in a separate checking account. So until at some point in time we decide how we're going to spend them. There's the program, the ARPA funds, they sort of have some interim rules. They've had some workshops, but everyone's still trying to figure out, Department of Treasury, what the final rules will be and how you can spend the funds. They have several categories. Those categories are very specific, and my initial review of them, it's going to be difficult for us to meet most of those categories. But there is one category where there's some calculators that have that we can put our numbers in, and you can calculate your lost revenues through the pandemic and kind of predicting out forward. And our first kind of attempt at this, we were coming up with something just a little bit more than $800,000. And we've since, have double checked with some other towns and the New Hampshire Municipal Association. And it does appear that, we've entered these numbers correctly. And a lot of towns are finding that the lost revenue category is probably going to be the easiest area for them to use the funds, along with infrastructure. So it's very clear, infrastructure, bridges, paving, drainage areas and stuff like that. What I've talked to the Board of Selectmen about is actually having the Capital Improvements Committee be the initial committee that would allow all the departments, boards, and committees to sort of submit their requests into the CIP committee. And then we prioritize those funds and put together recommendations submitted to the selectmen for their approval. So sort of we collect the data, and hopefully we can tie a lot of the expenditure of these funds to our CIP plan and forward that on to the Board of Selectmen with a recommendation. I don't know if the CIP committee wants to be part of that process. I think it would be a really good opportunity for us because we have good representation, budget committee, school, planning department, selectmen, that we use this committee as that committee to really work out the fine details and submit it up to the selectmen for recommendation. I want to make sure you're on board with that.
What is the acronym ARPA? What does that stand for?
American Rescue Plan Act of 2022.
So because you showed loss of revenue, that you can then utilize that money in any way you want to?
So, well, there's still some conditions, but that category, if you can calculate that you can and show that, you have a loss of 800,000 of revenue, then that is the category that's most flexible. some of the other categories are very restrictive as to, you might be addressing, housing or, those types of different categories that they wanted to address through the pandemic, daycare facilities and stuff like that, but for the municipality, it seems that the loss of revenue and the infrastructure category are the two areas that would be the easiest.
And lost revenue is basically from new car registrations.
Well, so it's a calculator that there's a couple different calculators that are out there. And there's this assumption that towns and cities would all have a 4.1% growth rate in revenues, new revenues. And so when you put in your numbers, it calculates what your growth rate was, and then the difference between the assumed growth rate and what your actual was is that's how it comes up with the 800,000. So it's strange. I think it's because of the assumption that we're going to have 4.1%. It's a little misleading because we didn't really have like a huge loss of revenue.
Right.
But based on the assumption you're going to have a growth rate of 4.1%, yeah, we did. We didn't realize that growth.
So if there was a loss, then you would have department heads or whatever come before this board for recommending to the board of selectmen that
It's a little difficult. What's been very clear to us up front is that this is not your typical grant program. Usually you're putting together your request and you're submitting it to someone who's going to review it and approve it. In this case, they wanted to get those funds out there as quick as possible. They literally advanced the funding to the towns, and we have to commit those funds, go out and expend the funds, and then seek, approval, report what we've done to them. During that review and reporting process, they could say, it was nice that you spent $100,000 on X, Y, or Z, but that was not an eligible use. So
It makes it pretty tough.
So the recommendation coming from the New
federal
Hampshire
red
Municipal
tape.
Association
Yeah,
right
it's the
now
same thing.
is like, let's slow down, everyone, all you towns and cities. Let's take this very slowly and make sure we all have our hands wrapped around this and see if there's some more changes, more clarification that comes in the final ruling, which is expected to come out sometime in late fall, early winter.
That means somebody else has basically been a guinea pig and attempted it,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Let's not be us, right?
Exactly. Let's
By
not.
you.
us.
So the other thing I was thinking, if you want us involved as far as with those funds and give direction to the selectmen, I would think it shouldn't be a wish list. I think it should be no different than when we put this plan together. More needs anything else. And we just said we would ask the department heads again, is there anything on the plan that needs either be updated or added? And I would leave it at that. And then we can take a look at, otherwise you're going to be getting everything and anything. And that wasn't what this plan was for.
Right.
And I think if we're looking to utilize some of those monies to offset some of the costs on this, then we ought to just continue working on the plan.
We go back to the classifications too. Anything that was urgent, we could see if it's feasible to be on Arpa funds.
Or meets whatever the criteria they've
Yep.
laid out
Yep.
that we know about today.
I mean, I think it's great. We'll ask the department heads if there's anything that needs to be updated or added or deleted off that list. But I think we say, hey, listen, we just rolled into $900,000, I think they can spend it pretty quickly.
Yeah. I mean, and you can play, I don't call it a game, but if you realize that we're laying out that we want to spend $200,000 for paving and road infrastructure over this, up till 2026. If we're able to use these funds to accomplish that $200,000, then that might, allow the ability
something else up.
to be able to address the purchase of a fire truck or something like that. And
Or back
or a backhoe or some of the plow trucks, it helps free up some of that tax, the tax cap issue. And so I think this would be a great sounding board to actually lay out a very strategic plan on how to use these funds.
I think you
this
also-
is never going to happen again. Well, but $900,000.
Yeah.
We have an opportunity to really address a lot that's in this.
Is there public documentation we can look at to see what their criteria constraints are?
What's that?
Can we see the constraints of?
Yeah, so
Something up on the.
I'll
federal
get
site?
I'll get some information out to you, some different links and stuff.
There's a
so you can
couple
start
links that
taking a
you've
look at
shared,
it.
And is there a deadline when those funds have to be?
Yeah, that was going to ask.
Well, we're good. I think they need to be committed and 2024 and expended by 2026. So we actually, again, we have
Same with a lot
Couple
of
years.
our federal.
same as yours. Yeah. So we've got a lot of time. And again, that's why it's, as long as we stay on top of it and working on it,
Yep.
I think we have time to do it and do it right.
It's a good chunk of change.
Yeah. Well, what do we want to do? Do we want to have you send out materials? or
So I'll send
something?
out some material this week, some links,
Folks
so you can
review
start
and then-
researching it.
Yeah.
And, I think it's a great opportunity to give us at least an agenda item for, once a month as we, and keep us alive, working on the plan and working on this.
And when are we going to ask the department heads as far as their input for any updates?
I'll do that this week.
So we can have
Get
for our
that
next
out
meeting.
there. Yeah. And at the end of the meeting here, we should pick a meeting next in November when we want to meet and see.
And we're just going to ask them for changes they may have.
And they may have some additions also.
Right. Well, I mean, whatever their updates are.
Yeah.
From there, we can look at it.
Remember, our criteria is $50,000 and a life expectancy of 5 years. So I don't think I really don't, based on what I'm hearing from departments, I don't think we're going to see some new items.
Right. Except for the library, because
The library is still in research mode is the way we left it. So yeah.
just giving them an opportunity. So.
Recreation is, that's a tough, it's volunteers. And I'm sure when we were going through the CIP process,
Right.
that's the one area that I could see possibly them coming forward with maybe a new project, like addressing Talent Hall or
Right.
maybe something else. But
Okay.
Right, because they didn't show before, right? And then any of our meetings, I know they were invited, but nobody from rec ever came.
no,
Oh, that's right. You know.
Yeah, Andy Ruggles showed up.
Did it?
Andy came in.
No, you're right.
Andy did come in. He talked about the parking lot.
That's right.
That's right. Okay. Impact fee update. Troy?
So, that one of the things that when we started to update our capital improvements plan, the impact fees, they work sort of in tandem with your capital improvements plan. They're not directly connected, but they definitely work in tandem, sort of playing off each other. And the impact fee program that we have in place right now is based on the prior capital improvement plan that was adopted, I can't remember what year, but we, the town, I wasn't around, but Mike, you may have been around, hired a third-party consultant, Bruce Mayberry. And he worked, as I understand, about 2.5 years with this town, developing the impact fee program, the methodology used to calculate what the cost would be per square foot for education, roads, library, police. And we've used him from time to time as we get requests to use impact fees for guidance. And recently we've had some interesting requests. I shouldn't say, we've had some requests from departments and consulted with him when we've learned, there's a different response for each impact fee. For example, we just, it was new to me, but the school came forward and said, we'd like to use impact fees for some major capital improvements that we're doing. And I was thinking, well, I don't think that's an eligible use. Came back, absolutely, the impact fees that are calculated for the school is based on recoupment because there was a substantial amount of money spent on the school systems to meet future growth. And because of that, the school has a little bit more flexibility on the use of the impact fees. Whereas when you have an impact fee that's being collected for the library, which is, seriously deficient in meeting the needs of the community back when the impact fees were developed, let alone the future needs, you have a deficiency, and there's a different way of applying those impact fees. So Bruce Mayberry has been used throughout the years for guidance on making sure we spend the funds correctly. He's going to retire at the end of this year, and he's definitely stepping out. He's made it very clear that his emails and phone numbers will disappear. So I think we're at a point, and I've talked to Jay, and Jay will talk a little bit about this, that I believe we're at the point where we need to actually sit down and work on the methodology and the calculation of the impact fees based on our new CIP. And I wanted to just have that discussion here. I don't know if that's really a planning board function. I have a feeling it is, but probably need to be working, with the CIP committee as well. And
Well, I think it was originally, it was a planning board function.
Yeah.
But certainly, having a CIP committee, you could probably do maybe something jointly. I don't know how that would work, but.
I don't either. But Jay, I talked to Jay today about this, and he's very well aware of the fact that, we need to update your impact fees and methodology.
Yeah, definitely we do. I would agree it is a planning board function, but obviously input from the CIP is critical because the CIP is going to be the basis. So, and it's definitely time to update it. Meaning the impact fee schedule, absolutely.
And this is something, Jay, that you think the National Regional Planning Commission could do for the town, or is
Yes.
Okay. And is that something you would go off and kind of look at? This would be like a contract. There'd be an expense associated with this, or
Yeah, definitely. It would be, fairly in depth. Obviously, very doable, but there is a fair amount of work that does go into it.
okay. So, based on that, I'm seeing everyone nodding their heads that, this is something we definitely should be looking at.
Mhm.
Can you, over the next few weeks, take a look at this and put together a proposal? And,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah, I'm happy to.
and then I don't know legally really who's the official person that, if it's the planning board or the CIP committee or the board of selectmen, but between all three of us, I don't think, we can work that all out, but as long as everything's moving forward and everyone's communicating and working together to,
That's right.
Because
Yeah,
I think,
it is the planning board, but necessarily, they all overlap.
because I think when Bruce Mayberry came to us last time, when I was on the board, I think we had gotten a grant or something to do with a grant. We had gotten some money to hire him to do consulting, and then he came in and gave a presentation. I think that's how that worked, if I recall. So yeah, and then he put together a plan. And
he said it was a very intense
it is.
2.5 years.
It is.
I think it was maybe, I don't know if it was your first impact fee development or,
Yeah.
and so there's just a lot of public engagement and discussion, and
it's a lot of work.
But it's already established now, so
now it's established. I think you were establishing it for the first time, and there was he just said Litchfield was very engaged, and it took a lot longer than he anticipated, but the outcome was, I think, a good outcome.
It
solid,
was.
solid
Yeah.
plan.
It was.
Yeah, agreed. And at this point, pretty clear people are familiar with the impact fees. So I don't think you need that extensive outreach again.
That's true. Okay. All right. Well, Jay, if you want to put that together, certainly happy to have you do that. And
Yeah, sure.
maybe for our next meeting or something, we can talk about it.
Okay.
If that works. Okay. All right, well, thank you. All right, I have an other category on my agenda. Is anything, any other that?
Can I
anybody
just
wants
mention
to-
one thing about impact fees? I mean, my understanding is that the elementary school is not, as of right now, we're not collecting impact fees for the elementary school. Because it was like dropped off, so.
I think if they are, it's very
School
little
by
at this
school, right,
point.
is how it was
So,
structured.
yeah, and and I think it goes back to when I was talking to Bruce Mayberry. Apparently, the elementary school was in such bad shape, or whatever the condition was at the time. The planning board, whoever was involved in this, decided that they would just focus on the middle school and the high school.
So it's something that would have to be presented to the planning board for approval to get GMS back as far
Yeah.
as receiving impact fees.
Especially if it's going to tie into the
Right.
It was also interesting that it was school by school and just not for the school
Right.
district.
I had never, like in my years auditing, I had never seen
You would
it
think that would
broken
just
out
be,
that way.
Yeah.
I
it
always
would
used
just
to
be
see
for
one,
schools.
one
Right.
fund.
You were telling me that when
Yeah.
you.
that's, when you see the breakdown for impact fees, that's what it is, right? It's for schools. It doesn't break it down by schools, but then when the impact fees have to be distributed, it's broken down by individual schools.
I think that's probably a different scenario now, in that you're really looking at a district-wide improvement plan. That's kind of how I would characterize it, so I think you could look at it differently in this one.
So that's why I think, because I've heard these discussions and, in my finance department, coming from the finance people in the school, and people are questioning, why is it like this? When I just think it's a perfect time to update the whole methodology and fee schedule and be able to say, hey, why do we have individual schools? Why do we have this? And if we can make it inclusive, that would be the easier way to manage.
And if we get it up to date, and we can just kind of keep it current from year
Yeah.
to year, just review it on an annual basis and see what direction we're going.
Definitely.
And that would actually complement with this, the CIP plan that
Yep.
we're doing, because it's a living, breathing document, so it continues to, and you can do the same thing. So they can play off each other. Okay, very good. Okay. I guess I'll open it up again to public input at 7:11, according to the clock. Is there any members of the public who wish to speak? Well, I don't see anybody in the audience. I don't see public. So
Yeah. He's unmuted.
Oh, wait a minute.
Jeff Town,
is there someone on the WebEx? I'm sorry.
Jeff Towns
he
there.
exchanged emails with me today. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Just interested to hear what's going on.
How are you?
He's just listening in, he said.
Oh,
Just
you're just
listen.
listening in? Okay. Very good.
Jeff is a new addition to the Recreation Commission.
Oh, okay. All right. Hello.
He's also tied into the Scouts of America.
Okay. Very good. Awesome. Okay. Well, hearing none, no public input, I will close public input. And at 7:12. And next is, next meeting date and time. So I guess, what do we want to, well, before we even get there, what do we want to see for next time as a board? Do we want to see an updated spreadsheet showing, 2027, or how do we want to? And possibly you're going to get in touch with the department heads, Troy, and check out what their needs are.
So I think you need to do a conjunction, get their needs, and then see if Jay can fill it into the spreadsheet or bring those needs back to us. We can discuss them and figure out where we want to plug them into the
Right.
spreadsheet.
Right.
And if Troy can get us the documentation for the ARPA fund, so we can look at that and maybe have more discussion on that next time.
And is Jay's impact fees, is he going to
Impact
bring that
fees.
here or is he going to bring it to the planning board?
Jay, what would you like to do first? I mean, it's up to you. How you proceed.
I'll get it to Troy, and then I think we could get it to both the planning board and the CIP committee.
Okay. All right, so we'll probably schedule it for a planning board meeting and then for a CIP meeting as well. All right, great. What do we want to do for in our next meeting?
So the Mondays open are the 1st, 15th, and 29th, but ZBA is on the 15th, right, Troy? So it's November 1st or November 29th.
If we're gonna stay active, I'm kind of thinking that the first Monday of the month might be the best right now.
Okay,
So we're going back to once a month.
we're gonna.
Well,
go-
at least if we meet, yeah, I think once a month
To
would
do
be
this
enough.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I know we're going to meet quarterly.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But if
So
it's
I-
like to do this work and just get it done, then it's fine. I don't
And then
care.
after that, it'll be after March, because we'll wait for a town meeting to see what passes on the warrant like we did last time.
Yep.
Meet in April and to discuss what went on.
Mhm.
Yeah, the beginning of the month's better for me because we're going into review cycle at the end of the month, and I'll be in hell. So no.
Do you want to stick to?
Let's
6 o'clock?
schedule it to the first Monday of the month, and then in March, we can make a determination of,
So that's November 1st.
yeah,
November 1st, okay.
November
And-
1st.
6 o'clock, November 1st is going to be our next meeting here in town. hall.
And 6 o'clock still good for everyone?
Yep.
That's good.
Yep.
Works.
And then on the spreadsheet updates, can we just mark what succeeded this year and then what did not? Because I think if we have to adjust, it's going to be important for us to know that.
You can do that, right, Jay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Anything else? All right, well, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second, do I have discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 4-0-0. All right, thank you for joining us this evening and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, Jay. Take care.